Good evening. Among the goods on offer tonight, we have a comedy called Norman, Is That You?, which is gay in the colloquial sense, but not necessarily in the strict sense. Carrie, the tale of an ugly duckling with fearful powers. Battle of Midway, yet another chapter in the story of how America won the war. And Sweeney, a big screen version of the adventures of two cops from the channel next door but one. In addition, I'll be talking to Gene Hackman on location in Spain about all manner of interesting things. But let's begin with Norman, Is That You? And I wish to state quite firmly that anyone who thinks that question is directed at me will have to deal with my lawyers. The Norman under review is both black and a window dresser and also homosexual, which fact comes as a considerable blow to his father, played by Red Fox. Pausing only to deliver the anguished cry, "My son has become a Tinkerbell," Mr. Fox rushes off to the local bookshop to find out all he can about the dread affliction of homosexuality.
Hold everything.
Yeah.
Mr. Childers has said shit 4 times, which means he's made a balls up. Can I have take 2, please, darling? Would you mind? Thank you. He never does it wrong, normally.
All the way back with the...
No, we're not going right back.
Oh, good.
We're going back to. Oh, he's carrying on from shot 12 and going into the clip, so forget the top. It's so funny. He never swears until he's done it wrong. He always says shit. No other word. Going into the top. I don't know how he's going to do that, but he did something funny. He'll drop it in after.
Exactly what aspect of homosexuality are you interested in?
I told you, it's not for me. It's for a friend of mine. Not a close friend. I mean, I just met him.
I understand.
No, you don't understand. Well, never mind. I'll just browse around.
The closet queens are the worst.
Wow, will you look at that? American history, one shelf. Homosexuality, a whole section. And look at the titles. Homosexuality in America. Homosexuality for and against. The gay way. All the president's men, I should have known.
Yes, well, all the president's men may have been decidedly queer in many ways, but not, I think, in that particular way. Anyway, that's the basic plot, the shock of a father who discovers that his son is not as other men are, or to be more accurate, not as 5 out of every 6 other men are. There's a subplot, too, concerning Pearl Bailey as Mr. Fox's errant wife, and the whole thing is fairly obviously adapted from a stage play. Generally speaking, it's a pretty amusing picture, not particularly well played or directed, with a couple of genuinely funny lines. I said earlier that it was a gay movie, but it's not really, because in a sense the homosexuality is almost incidental, and the story is far more concerned with the difficulties of the parents in adjusting to their son's way of sex. This sort of thing, for example.
Hold everything. I'll put it there because I'm reason. What?
Dad, I said walk across the room.
Look, if you...
See there, you don't walk like one. Now say Mississippi.
Dad... Dad...
I said walk across the room.
Look, if you...
See there, you don't walk like one. Now say Mississippi.
Dad, please...
Say Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Say it again.
Mississippi.
Perfect. See there, you don't walk like one, you don't talk like one. I say you're not one.
Don't get excited.
Norman, tell me it isn't true. Tell me you're on drugs. That's it. You're on drugs. Thank God my son is on drugs. You're a dope fiend, that's all. Now I can sleep at night.
I'm not on drugs. I'm not on anything. Can we try and be reasonable about this?
Reasonable. I'll tell you what reasonable is. Reasonable is when a son leaves Tucson and comes to Los Angeles and his father drops in to see him and finds him in bed with a woman. A woman, you hear? Fat, skinny, young, old, black, white, purple, anything but a woman. That's being reasonable.
Look, I am what I am, and that's that.
And I'd say you're not what you are, and that's that. Norman, have you tried seeing a physician?
Why should I, Dad? I'm perfectly happy.
How can you be happy without a woman?
A lot of people are.
Well, your Uncle Albert wasn't. Norman, we got to stop this thing before it gets out of hand.
Please try to be understanding.
Aha! So that's it. I'm not understanding. I knew it. It's my fault. I work day and night to support you and your mother and that son of a bitch uncle of yours. Who the hell has time to be understanding?
Some people are different.
I should have forced you to finish college. Believe me, if you'd have been a CPA instead of a goddamn window trimmer, this would have never happened.
It would have happened no matter what I was.
Oh, yeah? Well, how many lumberjacks you know have purple drapes?
Have you noticed how often in light fiction homosexuals are depicted like Norman as window dressers? Very interesting, that. What it means, I suppose, is that the next time you're walking along the high street and you smile at the fellow dressing the mannequins in the window, you better be sure you mean it. Still, let's move on now to something rather more butch. Battle of Midway, a fairly straightforward war epic about the aircraft carrier battle in 1942, when the Americans got a bit of their own back for Pearl Harbor. It's made in Sense-Around, which is the system that shakes you about in your seat whenever a bomb goes off and leaves you slightly deaf and a bit seasick and wondering what you've done to deserve this appalling treatment. Henry Fonda, Glenn Ford and Robert Mitchum portray the veteran, and in some cases positively aged admirals, in charge of the American side of the battle, and Charlton Heston is the elderly pilot whose son has gone and fallen in love with a Japanese girl, silly ass. It's all, thank goodness, less histrionic than most American war films, and the action sequences are much more spectacular than the acting, which is a bit on the perfunctory side. Here now are Admiral Fonda and Captain James Coburn discussing before the battle the probable target of the Japanese task force. It's interesting, of course, that in war films nowadays there are no villains anymore. This being peacetime, America clearly doesn't want to offend Japan, so the film is terribly polite about everybody on both sides, which may be very good from the point of view of diplomacy, but doesn't do a hell of a lot for the dramatic tension. I wonder what John Ford would have thought of it all. Ford being the director who won an Academy Award for the documentary he made in 1942 about the actual Battle of Midway. Don't imagine he was thinking terribly polite thoughts about the Japanese when he was filming this kind of action scene.
Right, stick the 3 men back, please. Shot 22 back on camera 1. 22.
trap is sprung. Navy planes roared from the decks of our carriers, Army bombers, Marines, thundered destruction over a 300-mile battle area.
Whether there's any particular reason for it, but after the recent spate of natural disaster movies, Earthquake, Jaws, etc., we seem to be in now for a spate of man-made disaster movies, in other words, war films. Battle of Midway is merely the first of them, and a whole batch of others, including A Bridge Too Far, MacArthur and Apocalypse Now, is on its way. Most imminent of all is Sam Peckinpah's Cross of Iron, which opens in London next month and which I'll be reviewing in a later programme. What a bloodthirsty creature civilised man is, to be sure. However, let's tear ourselves away from contemplating the pleasures of blowing each other to bits and see if you can recognise Paul Newman's leading lady in this clip.
I used to be an actress.
Yeah, what do you do now?
I'm a college girl. 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I go to college.
Don't look like a college girl.
I'm the emancipated type. Real emancipated.
No, I didn't mean that. Whatever that means. I mean, you just don't look young enough.
I'm not.
So why go to college?
Got nothing else to do on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
What do you do on the other days?
I drink.
Well, that was the famous Scottish regimental musician Piper Laurie in her last major film appearance in The Hustler, way back in 1961. After that, she married a film critic, and presumably because no self-respecting film critic would want to go around admitting he was married to an actress, she more or less retired. But I suppose giving up acting's a bit like giving up drinking. You're always likely to fall off the wagon. So now she's made a comeback in Brian De Palma's horror movie called Carrie. It's a kind of fairy tale gone bad. Carrie, played by the odd-looking Sissy Spacek, is a sort of cross between Cinderella and the Ugly Duckling. Her mother, played by the aforementioned Piper Laurie, is a religious nut who keeps her in ignorance of even basic facts of life, such as menstruation. Her classmates hate her because she's frankly a bit wet, and even the kindest teachers are patently patronising towards her. In fact, all she has going for her is that she's telekinetic. She can move objects simply by thinking about them. And when she goes to the high school prom, a social event that appears to be highly regarded in American academic circles, and turns out to be a veritable swan and not an ugly duckling at all, and her classmates play a very mean trick on her, she lets them have both barrels of her telekinesis at point-blank range. The mayhem from this point on is quite awe-inspiring, and neither the guilty nor the innocent is spared. Carrie, in fact, is a splendidly made shocker, full of tricky bits of work by director Brian De Palma. It's a horror comic, really, with intellectual pretensions. Sissy Spacek, who was so very good in Badlands, is equally good here, and Piper Laurie looks remarkably youthful, a tribute, no doubt, to the benefits of marriage to a film critic. Here they are together just after Carrie has suffered the unexpected trauma of her first period.
He was weak. And the Lord visited him with a curse. And the curse was a curse of blood. You should have told me, Mama. You should have told me. Oh, Lord, help the sinning woman see the sin of her days and ways. Show her that if she had remained sinless, the curse of blood would never have come on her. She may have been tempted by the Antichrist. She may have committed the sin of lustful thoughts.
No, Mama.
Oh, don't lie to me, Carrietta. Don't you know by now I can see inside you? I can see the sin as surely as God can.
No,
We'll pray.
No.
We'll pray, woman.
No.
Pray to Jesus for our lost sinning souls.
No.
God visited the curse.
No.
This was the
No.
I believe this was the second curse. And this was a curse of childbearing. And he brought forth pain and sweat and blood. Genesis 3:16.
Mama, please let me out. Mama, please let me out. Mama, God! I'm Father Gordon.
There's one thing more I must tell you about Carrie. In the closing seconds, there's a moment of such spine-chilling horror as I've not seen equalled in the cinema for many a year. A real tour de force, and the film's almost worth seeing for that alone. But now, Gene Hackman, the cinema's most improbable superstar. I say improbable because he doesn't look like a superstar. I'd say he looked like a truck driver, except that self-regarding truck drivers might easily be insulted by the analogy. Not to understand that I wish to be offensive to Mr. Hackman. In fact, it's nice that he is a superstar because he gives a flicker of hope to the rest of us careworn, beat-up-looking people. However, he's had a curious sort of career. At 16, he lied about his age and joined the US Marines and was kicked out shortly afterwards, having broken both his legs in a motorcycle accident. Then he became a part-time actor and part-time odd job man, and at one stage he was keeping body and soul together by filling in as doorman at a Times Square restaurant. His former Marines captain saw him there and said, "Hackman, you're a sorry-looking son of a bitch." But eventually things got better, and the sorry-looking SOB made his film debut in 1964, since when he's appeared in more than 25 films, collecting 1 Oscar for The French Connection, and giving notable performances in pictures like I Never Sang for My Father, Bonnie and Clyde, Prime Cut, and The Poseidon Adventure. The first film, though, was Lilith, and this then is virtually Gene Hackman's screen debut, part of a 5-minute scene with Warren Beatty.
Well, I guess you're mighty glad to be back, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's quite an adventure, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
I tried twice to sign up myself, but I couldn't make the grade. I'm colon trouble. The TV, Bonnie? I just... Say, I don't suppose there's any possibility that you knew my kid brother. He's in the 1st Marine Division over there in your part of the world somewhere.
No, I don't. That was a great outfit.
Great outfit, wasn't it? Yeah, great. Nick had a fine war record. He's doing real well now, too. He turned out to be real natural as a traveling salesman. He found kind of unusual lines for an ex-Marine. Every time I see him now, I say, "Nick, I never thought I'd see you in ladies' underwear." Ladies' underwear. That's his line, ladies' underwear.
Yeah,
I certainly wouldn't have been prepared for any kind of immediate success when I started. I just wasn't mature enough to handle anything more than what I was getting at the time. And I think in life sometimes you do get what you want. I'm sure there'll be people who will argue with that, but people tend to either settle for or they get the life that they want. That's not to say that I always thought that I would have this life, because I never really pointed towards that. But I don't know. It's, you know, life tends to go in peculiar ways that some people can learn a great deal from a university course in acting, for instance, and other people get nothing from it.
You must get a kind of ironic satisfaction from the fact that at Pasadena, at acting school, you and a young unknown called Dustin Hoffman were voted the 2 students least likely to succeed.
Yes. I don't know if it gives me any real satisfaction in terms of the school, but I certainly look back on those days as, you know, with fondness, even though I didn't get a lot of encouragement as an actor.
All right, Popeye's here. Get your hands on your heads. Get off the bar and get on the wall. Come on, move.
Despite all that lack of encouragement, he plugged gamely on, and in his 15th film, he really brought himself to public attention and indeed won his Oscar as the Best Actor of 1971, when he played the role of Popeye Doyle, the tough New York cop in The French Connection.
Hey, you drop that. Pick it up. Hands up. Pick it up. Come on, move. What are you looking at? All right, bring it here. Get your hands out of your pockets. What's my name?
Doyle.
What?
Mr. Doyle.
Come here. You pick your feet. You get over there. Get your hands on your head. Hold up. We told you people were coming back. We're gonna keep coming back here until you clean this bar up. Keep your eye on your neighbor. He dropped something that belongs to you. What is this, a hospital here? Huh? Turn around there, fella. What do we got here, huh? This belong to you? Huh? Stand up there, naughty. Get your hands on your head. Get in there. You want to take a ride there, fat man?
Oh, bullshit.
Huh? Pay attention. We're going to ask questions later. Turn around. All right, shut up. Shut up! Anybody want a milkshake?
I've been very lucky in terms of my career, that gotten into a position where I can kind of do what I wanted. But unfortunately, I can't shoot all the films in my backyard, which I would really like to do, because I've been traveling now for about 12 years and I'm really tired of it. I'm away from my family. Oh, last year I was away about 6 months of the year. This year I'll be away probably 3 or 4 months, and it takes a toll.
The most recent absence from his family is caused by the fact that he's here in Spain, playing the part of a major in the latest French Foreign Legion film called March or Die. Did he enjoy acting in this kind of action-adventure movie?
Well, it doesn't matter whether I like it so much as whether or not, that's what the vogue seems to be, that we're into that genre right now. And there doesn't seem to be much of a place for the really, what I would consider, as far as an actor is concerned, exciting character pieces and that kind of thing.
Got films like The Conversation.
Films like The Conversation will be very difficult to be made now, I think, for a while at least, until things change, and they do in the film business. They're constantly changing. I guess that's what makes it interesting.
In The Conversation, he played a man specializing in wiretapping and bugging who eventually realizes, to his horror and frustration, that some of his work is being used to set up a murder in the very next room.
That train problem will also cure the problem if the station ran through electronic processing. The answer is no. At the end of the news last night, it was stated that Nixon would not deliver the State of the Union message in person. Why not? Well, we don't really know. The only explanation was given by
Do you ever wonder why it should have happened to you? Because you're not really in the kind of pretty mold of Robert Redford of the superstar, are you?
Did you think? I don't know. I thought I was.
Perhaps you're not quite as pretty as Robert Redford. Do you think that the average American, for instance, identifies with you more than he does with Redford or McQueen?
I have no idea. I ask myself that every morning when I shave. What are you doing in this business? You know, you're on a pass. Go steal the money before they finally take a good hard look at you. I don't know. That's really a mystery to me. That's really a mystery, and I'm afraid if I examine it too closely, it'll really start frightening me. It's the film business, you know. Who in the hell knows what makes people tick or what makes people go on? I know that my background as a performer on stage in New York certainly has held me in good stead, and I feel as a performer that I have a certain amount of energy.
Have you got accustomed now to the kind of superstar status that you enjoy at the present? Or do you still occasionally feel surprised at all the things that have happened to you in the last few years?
Certainly there are things that are offered to you and things that you can do and that are special. But you tend to say, yeah, that's special, but I don't know what it has to do with me. You know, I've been in the business about 21 years, and it came along gradually for me. So you kind of become accustomed to staying in you know, fine hotels and first-class service and first-class airfare, and you get very accustomed to that. And when someone asks you a question like that, you say, I don't know exactly what you mean. What treatment are you talking about?
I understand your next film's going to be Superman with Marlon Brando. You're looking forward to that?
I'm looking forward to it tremendously. I guess I'm in the business because of Marlon. His first film, The Men, and was very taken by that. So I was very affected by him, and I'm looking forward to being in the film with him. My character is, I play Luthor, the kind of arch villain. It was a very funny character too, and it's an interesting concept, that film. I would hope that that would work for an audience, because it's pure entertainment. You know?
Yes, I think one tends to overlook the fact that you are actually a very skilled comic actor. And I think, you know, your scene as the blind man in Young Frankenstein was hilariously funny.
My background was sort of in comedy, and I think it gives you a good sense of timing, which is certainly invaluable to any actor.
As the blind man in Young Frankenstein, he has no idea who his strange guest is, but generously invites the hungry monster to share his supper.
Oh, no, don't speak. Don't speak. Don't say a word. Oh, my joy and my prize from heaven. Oh, you must have been the tallest one in your class. My name is Harold, and I live here all alone. What is your name? I didn't get that. No. Oh, forgive me. I didn't realize you were a mute. You see how heaven plans. Me, a poor blind man, and you a mute. An incredibly big mute. But your hand is frozen, my child. How does a nice bowl of soup sound to you, huh? Yes, well, I know what it means to be cold and hungry. Yes, and how much it means to have a little kindness from a stranger. Are you ready for your soup? Hold out your bowl, then. Oh, my friend, you don't know what your visit means to me. How long I've waited for the pleasure of another human being. Sometimes in our preoccupation with worldly matters, we tend to forget the simple pleasures that are the basis for true happiness.
In comedy, it's if you're out there trying to be funny or trying to make a situation funny, and it's not funny to an audience, there is nothing as painful.
That must be agony.
Yes, but conversely, when it's working, it's great fun.
Do you ever wonder what of the future? Do you see yourself becoming a famous old actor full of years and honors, or
No,
getting out of the business?
I would hope not. It's very difficult for American actors, I think, to retire kind of gracefully and take lesser parts and become a character actor. The business is, I think, rather cruel in those terms. That you're either here or you're there. There's no in between. One of the few exceptions I would say would probably be Henry Fonda, who has managed to still create a career for himself and take acceptable kinds of roles, and he's still a respected actor. But by and large, I would say that most people they don't fade away, they just really drop away. And I would hate to be, you know, having to make rounds and say I really need the work, and I'd just like to stop, I think.
A quick look there at the career of Gene Hackman, whose latest film, as we saw, is a Foreign Legion epic called March or Die, which will be shown later in the year. Hackman, incidentally, was rather badly injured when he was thrown from a horse during the making of that film, but happily he seems to have made a full recovery. And now, to end this week's programme, we have a television spin-off, a big-screen adventure featuring a couple of actors you wouldn't normally expect to see on BBC One, John Thor and Dennis Waterman. They star, of course, in Sweeney, a story of London's finest, those prima donnas of the Metropolitan Police, the devoted, upstanding, dedicated, randy, brutal, drunken yobbos of the Flying Squad. And if any Flying Squad officers are looking in, please let me add that this isn't the way I see them, it's the way the film shows them. John Thor as Detective Inspector Regan and Dennis Waterman as Detective Sergeant Carter become involved in a plot, masterminded by Barry Foster, to manipulate both the price of oil and Britain's energy minister, a corrupt and dissipated character who's not at all like Wedgie and is played by Ian Bannon. Mr. Foster's plans, however, go so far awry that wholesale murder takes place, and what with extricating himself from frame-ups and avoiding assassination attempts, poor Inspector Regan barely has time to indulge in what appear to be the traditional Flying Squad hobbies of boozing and whoring. It's a man's life in the Sweeney, I can tell you. Still, unbelievable though the storyline may be, there's a good crisp script from Ronald Graham, sharp direction by David Wicks, and good performances by John Thor and Barry Foster particularly. It's nice to welcome a tough, effective British thriller. So tonight I'd like to leave you with a glimpse of John Thor and Dennis Waterman in action. But before we see that, may I remind you that Melvyn Bragg will be here next week with Read All About It, and I'll be back as usual in a fortnight's time with Sidney Lumet's new film Network and an interview in Hollywood with the star of the film, Peter Finch, just before he died. Till then, I leave you in the competent but erratic hands of the Sweeney Todd. Good night.
You all right, George? Yeah. Listen, I want you to get on to Dave Chapman, that DI who handled the Janice Wyatt death.
I'm sorry, Gov. I can't do it.
George, I'm not asking, mate. I'm pleading.
Have you gone bananas? Your chances are slim enough as they are.
This is my only chance.
Yeah, well, I can't get involved. You're a marked man.
Thanks a lot.
Well, I've got to get slung out and all, have I?
Do you remember where she worked?
Medium something, wasn't it? Media... Yeah, Media Limited. No, Incorporated. Media Incorporated.
Where?
Yellow Pages, innit? Let your fingers do the walking.
At least keep me posted on the Brent murder inquiry, eh?
I'm sorry, Governor. No way. Bloody hell. Have a drink.
Up yours.
You get yourself 2 gross of Alka-Seltzer.
Good evening. Tonight we have 2 pieces of mild nostalgia for the 1950s, which is a little odd because I thought the nostalgia boom had finished with the 50s ages ago and was now looking back all sort of misty-eyed at last weekend. Still, the 50s is what we're meant to be nostalgic for in Paul Mazursky's semi-autobiographical Next Stop, Greenwich Village, and in a spiky and slightly spiteful French comedy called À nous les petites Anglaises. We also have a more contemporary thriller in 2 Minute Warning, which is about a sniper in an American football stadium. And I'll be reviewing Mel Brooks's very noisy silent movie and White Rock, the official film of last year's Winter Olympics. And finally, we have an interview with Peter Finch, recorded just before his recent death in Hollywood, in which he talks about his role as an aging newscaster who becomes the mad prophet of TV in Network. But let's begin back in 1953 with Next Stop, Greenwich Village, which has Lenny Baker as a young Jewish boy escaping from his home and his Yiddish mama in Brooklyn to learn how to be an actor in Greenwich Village. Why he wants to go to Greenwich Village particularly is not all that clear, but from this scene you can certainly understand why he wants to get away from his mum.
Mom, what you are doing is called hysteria. You're trying to make me feel guilty about going. Mom, I am going. I have to go. I have to live my own life. I am 22 years old. Mom, you're gonna give yourself a heart attack. Jesus Christ, will you stop it? Nothing you do is gonna stop me from going. You are not going to make me feel guilty.
Hi, Mrs. Tufferman.
Where are you going with all that luggage?
Greenwich Village.
You're moving?
Yeah.
What's in Greenwich Village?
Fame and fortune.
That's where I missed out, I think. I never did get to Greenwich Village. I've never quite worked out what the kosher equivalent of a hammy performance would be. A salt beefy performance, perhaps. Well, whatever it is, that's what Shelley Winters provides. To say that she goes over the top is an understatement, because she starts over the top. She's a caricature of the possessive Jewish mother of myth and legend, the kind whose home is simply an extension of her womb, the kind who, as Lenny Baker remarks, glumly invented the Oedipus complex. So anyway, what with Miss Winters breathing down his neck and his girlfriend getting pregnant and needing an abortion, Mr. Baker has a pretty lively time down in Greenwich Village while he waits for his first break as an actor. Paul Mazursky, the writer and director of the film, apparently had a very similar start in life, and the role played by Mr. Baker is, at least in part, a romanticised, fictionalised version of the young Mazursky, as remembered with warmth and affection by the older Mazursky. It's an agreeable, pleasantly amusing film with neat performances by Lenny Baker and also by Ellen Green as the impregnated girlfriend. But if they do the best acting, Miss Winters does the most acting, as we're about to see. Lenny Baker anticipates the first visit of his mother to his Greenwich Village pad.
You call this an apartment? I don't call this an apartment. An apartment has furniture. This is not furniture, Mom.
What do you mean, Mom? I've got a record player, I've got a lovely sling chair, I've a fabulous print by Bruegel.
That is not funny, my darling son. Not funny at all, Ben. Go down and get some cream soda. I saw a place in the corner. Mom, I don't need any cream soda. Pop, you stay right where you are. Well, I need some cream soda. Ben, you hear me? Mom, look, let Pop take a load off his feet, huh? I'll get the soda. Cream? Can you remember that?
Sure, Mom. Cream.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Pop. Come on in.
Oh, you call this an apartment? I don't call this an apartment. An apartment's got shelving and curtains, furniture. This is not furniture.
What do you mean, Mom? I've got a record player, I have a lovely sling chair, I have a fabulous print by Bruegel.
Got a toilet? I'm dying.
Well, by coincidence, Un Nous les Petites Anglaises is also allegedly set in the 1950s, in Ramsgate in 1959, to be precise. Though goodness only knows why, because there are so many anachronisms in the film that the odd 1950s touch, like a couple of teddy boys in full uniform, looks more out of place than all the people in their 1970s denim gear. However, the plot is about a couple of French boys who failed their English exams and are sent by way of stern punishment to Ramsgate to brush up the language, although they, of course, being French and randy, have other things in mind, especially as they share what I found to be a common European belief that English girls are the easiest in the world. That's never been my experience, worse luck, but maybe that's my fault. Anyway, with typical French chauvinism and conceit, the two boys come swiftly to the conclusion that the only girls pretty enough, intelligent enough, and desirable enough to be worth bothering with are those in the huge French contingent that seems to have taken over the entire Kent coast. So that what begins as a very funny, although also rather cruel look at the foibles of the ludicrous English ends up as a much more tolerant and kindly study of French teenagers in love, rather like American graffiti with a whiff of garlic. Much of it is highly amusing, though not, I should think, if you happen to live in Ramsgate, and I found the whole thing pretty enjoyable. So obviously did the French, because Un Nous les Petites Anglaises, which means let's have the little English girls, made more money in France last year than any other film except Jaws. I think it must have pandered to the narcissistic element in them. However, here are the two French lads, Alain and Jean-Pierre, at the beginning of their visit and all set to sample the local crumpet.
Pour emballer. Ce qui compte d'abord, c'est l'œil. L'œil. Le cil recourbé, la prunelle luisante, la paupière supérieure légèrement, très légèrement tombante, et puis alors la bouche. Les lèvres humides. Or attention, pas mouillées, hein. Humides seulement. Une cigarette dans la main, et tu t'approches. Alors après, c'est du nougat. Tu regardes le prénom sur sa chaînette ou sur son bracelet, et tu parles. Faut jamais leur laisser le temps d'en passer une, sinon c'est foutu. Et puis ensuite... Quoi?
Regarde les trois nanas derrière toi. Tu crois que j'ai une touche avec la brune? On y va? Bon, moi je prends la brune, tu prends la blonde, ça va?
Qu'est-ce que tu veux que je fasse d'autre? Je vais pas me taper l'autre boudin, non?
Allez, allons-y.
Attends. D'accord.
Qu'est-ce qui t'arrive? Qu'est-ce que tu fais? Quoi, c'est pas ça? Oh là 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 là.
Hello. Huh? What is your name? Jane? Oh, yes, and you? Sharon. Oh, Jane.
Alors, what are you doing? You make a promenade with us?
Make a what?
Yes, a promenade, you understand?
Oh, yes, but I must wash my hair.
Women are all the same. They've either got to wash their hair or they've got a headache. That film, incidentally, is showing at the EMI International Cinema in London, which used to be the Bloomsbury, and which, under the artistic direction of Kenneth Rive, has ambitions to be an international film centre rather than just a mere cinema. Quite apart from showing pictures by leading British and continental directors, it'll have lectures, film workshops, discussion evenings and the like. I should think Bloomsbury could do with something like that. Come 10 o'clock at night, the place is about as swinging as Ramsgate. But now Peter Finch, there's a very unhappy irony in the fact that his death in Hollywood 3 weeks ago at the age of 60 came just as his career appeared to have entered a new and extremely successful phase. In that plethora of films about Entebbe that's overwhelmed us lately, it was Peter Finch who emerged with least egg on his face and most credit for his performance as the Israeli Prime Minister in Raid on Entebbe. And in his last film, Network, which hasn't been seen in this country yet, he won so much acclaim that there's talk of nominating him posthumously for an Oscar. Network was written by Paddy Chayefsky and directed by Sidney Lumet, and in it Finch plays a teleperson who's grossly exploited by his network in its frantic and ruthless struggle for better ratings. Our reporter in Hollywood, Barbara Paskin, spoke to Peter Finch shortly before his death and asked him to describe his part in the film.
The character that I play, for instance, if one is allowed to talk about it now, is an anchorman who, to English audience, I don't think we use the word anchorman, who's a newsman, like in America, Walter Cronkite or John Chancellor, who in America here are enormously big pundits in television. They are treated almost as philosophers and certainly captains of opinion. And they are, and Ed Murrow was a very famous one here, and they are old newsmen dedicated to news and very, very good at their work. They write their own copy, they write their own stories, and they come on the air. And they're not just readers of news. And they become great big personalities. And the character that I play is one who has been in it and been a big personality and had very high ratings. And suddenly at the beginning of the picture, his ratings are falling. The dread ratings are falling. And so he's going to get fired. It doesn't matter how famous, how marvelous, how wonderful you are. If the ratings start to fall and the network so decides, you will go. And this is a dreadful blow to a man of some 50 summers. And at the same time, he's recently lost his wife. He's drinking too much. And at the beginning of the film, he announces on the air in a news program that he's going to shoot himself on the following Tuesday on the television.
Cue Howard.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like at this moment to announce that I will be retiring from this program in 2 weeks' time because of poor ratings. Since this show was the only thing I had going for me in my life, I have decided to kill myself.
So what'd she say?
I'm going to blow my brains out right on this program a week from today.
10 seconds to commercial.
So tune in next Tuesday. That should give the public relations people a week to promote the show. We ought to get a hell of a rating out of that.
Roll
A
telecine.
50 share. Easy.
Take telecine.
When you're having
Listen,
a great time.
Did you hear that?
What was that about?
Howard just said he was going to blow his brains out next Tuesday.
What are you talking about?
Didn't you hear him? He just said... Howard just said he was going to kill himself next Tuesday.
The story of an anchorman who these presses get to. And it's also the story of his boss, who is the editor, and the woman, who's played by Faye Dunaway, who is a sort of new, modern career woman, devoted to television, devoted so much that she sacrifices the rest of her life to getting good ratings, to having a good show. And the head of the news department is Bill Holden, who is very cynical now about what news has become on television. which is rather more entertainment than straight news, and he's worried about this aspect of it and is constantly fighting it.
Close the door, Harry. Howard, I'm taking you off the air. I think you're having a breakdown. Require treatment.
This is not a psychotic episode. This is a cleansing moment of clarity. I'm imbued, Max. I'm imbued with some special spirit. It's not a religious feeling at all. It's a shocking eruption of great electrical energy. I feel vivid and flashing, as if suddenly I'd been plugged into some great electromagnetic field. I feel connected to all living things, to flowers, birds, all the animals of the world, and even to some great, unseen, living force, what I think the Hindus call prana. But it's not a breakdown. I've never felt more orderly in my life. It is a shattering and beautiful sensation. It is the exalted flow of the space-time continuum, save that it is spaceless and timeless and of such loveliness. I feel on the verge of some great, ultimate truth. And you will not take me off the air for now or for any other spaceless time.
Peter Finch and William Holden in Network, which I'll be reviewing in our next programme. Finch was born in England and raised in Australia, and in the 1950s, that decade of which we've already heard quite a lot tonight, he had a reputation as a hard-drinking hellraiser. But all that really meant was that he enjoyed wine, women and song, and they seemed to me to be very nice hobbies for a man. In any event, his hell-raising, such as it was, neither disguised the fact that he was a most charming and likeable man, nor detracted from his ability as an actor. In 25 years and well over 40 films, he never gave anything that remotely resembled a bad performance, and very often he was a great deal better than the films in which he appeared. I remember him particularly in The Shirley, which my father directed, and also, of course, in A Town Like Alice and No Love for Johnny, for each of which Finch won the British Film Academy Award, The Trials of Oscar Wilde, and Sunday, Bloody Sunday, for which he was nominated for the American Oscar. But despite his solid record of achievement, it was his performance in Network that belatedly brought him to the full attention of Hollywood. And it's particularly sad that he should have died just when the rewards that attend a successful actor were beginning to come his way. But apart from being a very talented man, he was also a very level-headed one, as he proved when he recently turned down the chance to co-star with Elizabeth Taylor in the film of A Little Night Music. Barbara Paskin asked him about that.
Well, I got an offer to go to Vienna to do A Little Night Music with two old friends, Hal Prince, whom I worked for in London years ago in Two for the Seesaw, and Liz Taylor, and it would have been, not that anybody might have minded, but it would have been together again after 26 years or something. But, and I would love to work with her, but I had to sing 3 difficult songs in the piece, and I have recently, in the last few years, had an experience of singing and being a non-singer. It really is a most hair-raising experience trying to learn songs when you can't read music. And on Lost Horizon, I had a lady who tutored me for 2 months. She was a brave woman, probably tone deaf, but she managed to stay with me for 2 months and beat the songs into my head. And then, as if that wasn't enough, I don't know whether the public know, but the process of filming a song is that the song is recorded and on a disc or on tape, and then you get up and you sing to the tape. In other words, you lip sync to the tape. Well, that was too much for me, and it became an agony. So finally I built up a pathological terror for this highly technical and difficult thing called singing, and I said to Liz, I'm sorry, much as I love you, can't do it. Would only ruin the film.
I'd like to ask you about your Oscar nomination for Sunday, Bloody Sunday. Can you describe your feelings when you didn't win the award?
Yes, and to be absolutely truthful, I went to the awards too. What happened was that afterwards I listened to all the speeches, and you know the Actors Award comes last, one's disappointment perhaps, and there must be some, is mixed with enormous relief that you don't have to get up there and say something, because by that time, and it's very late at night and far too many people have been on and everybody's tired, there's nothing left to say. People have done the tearful speech, the comical speech, the thank you speech, the political speech, whatever is to be done. And, very last is the actor, and I don't know what you say. I mean, you know, this is a hair-raising thing to have to think of, and relief is part of not winning the award.
Peter Finch, thank you very much indeed.
When you're at school and you want to quit, people say, you're going to hate it out in the world. I didn't believe them, and I was right. When I was a kid, I couldn't wait to be grown up. And they said, childhood is the best time of your life, but it wasn't. And now, I want his company, and they say, what's half a loaf? You're well shot of him. And I say, I know that. But I miss him. That's all. And they say, he never made you happy. And I say, but I am happy, apart from missing him. He might throw me a pill or two for my cough. All my life, I've been looking for somebody courageous, resourceful. He's not it. But something. We were something.
Well, Sunday, Bloody Sunday won Peter Finch his first Oscar nomination, and I'll be very surprised if his name isn't on the list again for his performance in Network when this year's nominations are announced later in the month, and I'll have more to say about those in our next programme. Meanwhile, Finch has won at least one posthumous award, the Golden Globe, given by Hollywood's Foreign Press Corps to the Best Actor of the Year. But at this point, let's return to the new films, and in particular 2 Minute Warning, in which a sniper takes up residence in a crowded football stadium in Los Angeles, and the local police chief, played by that archetypal bionic man, Charlton Heston, spends a lot of time wondering what he ought to do about it. Actually, 2 Minute Warning is just another disaster movie, and as the dramatis personae step forward to be introduced to us, it's pretty clear from the start whom the disaster is likely to strike. There's Beau Bridges, the family man who's just lost his job. There's David Jansen, who's having trouble with his mistress, Gina Rowlands. There's Jack Klugman, who's in even bigger trouble, because if the sniper doesn't kill him, his bookmaker almost certainly will. And so on and so on. Nothing very much takes place until the last few minutes, when a great deal takes place. But director Larry Pierce builds up a fair bit of tension and interest as he dwells on the potential violence of the mysterious sniper and the actual violence of the Los Angeles police, who on this evidence are an exceptionally brutal bunch. If I'd been in the stadium and wanted to know the time, I'd sooner have asked the sniper than the police. Incidentally, the 2 Minute Warning of the title is a signal given 2 minutes before the end of an American football match. It's also the point in the film when, as we shall see, things begin to happen. 2 Minute Warning went out on release today. Meanwhile, Silent Movie, which is due to go on release next Sunday, is having an extended run in the West End of London. It's silent only to the extent that it has no dialogue, otherwise the soundtrack can be very noisy indeed. It's also a Mel Brooks film, which means that it's possessed of a demonic energy and about 1 million jokes, some of them inspired and many quite appalling, but all thrown in on the reasonable hypothesis that somebody's bound to laugh somewhere. Brooks himself plays Mel Funn, a director who's ruined by drink and who tries to save a big picture studio, which just happens to be called Big Picture Studio, from being engulfed and devoured by a wicked conglomerate, which just happens to be called Engulf and Devour. With the aid of Marty Feldman and Dom DeLuise, he attempts to do this by persuading stars like Burt Reynolds, Anne Bancroft and Lisa Minnelli to appear in a silent movie. In private life, of course, Miss Bancroft is in fact Mrs. Mel Brooks, and in Hollywood they're known as Beauty and the Beast. I pass this on simply as incidental information. Anyway, Silent Movie, like all Mel Brooks's films, with the exception of The Producers, which is very nearly perfect, is a kind of cinematic curate's egg. When it's good, which is to say funny, it's very good and very funny indeed. And when it's not, well, be patient, because there's another joke coming up any second now. Here are Brooks and company trying to persuade James Caan to take part in their Silent Movie. Our last film this evening is White Rock, which is British, having been made by Tony Maylam and Michael Samuelson, and is the official film of the Winter Olympics held in Innsbruck last year. It has James Coburn as a personable and not too portentous guide to the various events, and it has some splendid music by Rick Wakeman. All in all, it's an excellent film about winter sports, but a record of the Olympic Games it certainly ain't. There's not even a glimpse of John Curry for a start, and if it had also left out Clammer's marvellous run in the downhill racing, I might well have started a modest one-man riot in the cinema. Fortunately, however, Clammer is in there, and so are one or two other gold medal winners. But generally speaking, White Rock is not a compendium of winners and losers. It's more of an attempt to explain what each of the sports entails, and as this is often done with the aid of a miniature camera strapped to a piece of equipment, such as the front of a two-man bob or a skier's boot in the 90-metre jump, the effect is frequently more spectacular and breathtaking than even Charlton Heston in Sense-Around. What more can I say? Well, you'll see for yourselves in just a minute. Melvyn Bragg will be here next Sunday, and I'll be back in a fortnight's time. Till then, take a firm grip on your armchair, your wife, the au pair girl, or whatever comes most swiftly to hand, and enjoy vicariously the thrills of White Rock. Good night.
How's the wax, Carl?
Well, we are talking about that secret later.
Carl Schranz. 2 times World Cup winner, 3 times champion of the world. He was hitting over 60 miles an hour coming down this slope. And that's quick on skis. But this year's Olympic champion will have to be doing better than that.
Good evening. Every now and then the film industry has a mad bout of incest, and what emerges 9 months later is a movie about the movies. Well, just lately somebody must have been eating fertility pills, because tonight we have triplets, 3 movies about the movies. There's a Nickelodeon, which deals with the early days of the picture business. There's Robert De Niro, starring as the last tycoon in Scott Fitzgerald's story of Hollywood in the 30s. And there's Richard Dreyfuss in Inserts, as a one-time whiz kid reduced to making porno pics. All in all, you've probably got the whole history of the movie business right there. In addition to the foregoing, we also have a word or two from Barbara Streisand, talking about her new film, A Star is Born, which used to be about the movie business the first 2 times it was made. And for good measure, we have a reissue of Martin Scorsese's splendid 1974 film, Mean Streets. We have Alan Arkin in Rafferty and the Gold Dust Twins, and American actor Stacy Keach tells us about his latest picture, and a British one at that, called The Squeeze. But we begin with Nickelodeon, which takes place before the First World War, when a powerful combine called the Patents Company had a monopoly of the film business and went to positively ruthless lengths to discourage independent competition. It's intended, at least in part, as a comedy, and it clearly had its moments of unintentional humour on the set when it was made in Hollywood last year.
It's Chicago, H.H.
I'll take it over
Cobb,
here.
Sit down.
Rufus, give them a subpoena if you have to. You're a lawyer. Get that camera.
Shut up. Okay, and action. Maybe we could get a big goose.
Who's that Indian fella you're looking
Indian
for?
fella?
Chippewa.
Chautauqua. It's
Yeah.
a theatrical tour, and we're all leaving on the train tonight.
As I said, the film is Nickelodeon, and those whom we saw corpsing were Burt Reynolds, Ryan O'Neal, his daughter Tatum, and a supporting cast that includes Stella Stevens, Brian Keith, and a pretty newcomer called Jane Hitchcock. Director is Peter Bogdanovich, who made What's Up, Doc and Paper Moon. Nickelodeon is set in 1912, when you could see moving pictures with a piano accompaniment for just a nickel. Ryan O'Neal as Leo Harrigan is about to start a new career.
It's moving pictures, galloping tin types, Muldoon. Haven't you ever been to a Nickelodeon?
Harrigan.
Nickelodeon. Give 'em hell, boy.
I'll do my best.
God be with you.
Burt Reynolds plays a country boy who accidentally gets involved in movie making.
I'm up north here to make my fortune in the clothing business.
Man killed a bob. How you get off this thing? Stop, horsey. Blizzard, stop. Hurricane, rain.
This huge prop, a hot air balloon, plays an important part in the action, as you'll see in a moment. And this prop, a hand-cranked camera, is a replica of one used by Cecil B. DeMille 60 years ago. Even the Ford truck, driven by Tatum O'Neal, is authentic.
All right, and Bert, action. Do you want everybody to think you're scared? I am scared. Look, a horse is human. That thing's full of hot air, just like you. All right. Harrigan, I'm gonna kill you. The world is our oyster. Be natural.
Watch out! What happened? Where am I?
Bill, what'll I do, cut? Are you kidding? Keep turning.
Get twisting!
Alice, get the truck. Everybody under the truck now. Bring that camera. Let's go. Come on. The truck? I've never done that before.
They're going toward the railroad tracks.
Well, so what? Follow them.
There's a train coming.
What?
Should I try to beat it?
Yes, beat the train.
Hang on.
Don't beat the train, Alice.
Beat it.
Don't beat it.
I can't.
Well, Nickelodeon starts out as a sort of slapstick comedy, and for a couple of dreadful reels, as every member of the cast took it in turns to fall over, I thought it was going to be another of those homages to other people's pictures, which Peter Bogdanovich seems so fond of making. But after a while, he kind of pulled himself together, and the actors managed to remain upright for minutes at a time, and it became a much better, much tougher, and much sharper picture altogether. True, Bogdanovich remains pig-headedly convinced, just as he was in that awful musical At Long Last Love, that Burt Reynolds is a light comedian, when all people of discernment can see that Mr. Reynolds is as much like a light comedian as Cary Grant is like a sweaty navvy. But even so, the second half of Nickelodeon, when the slapstick stops and the film begins to take a disenchanted look at Hollywood in the heyday of the silent movies, is a decided improvement on the first. I only wish I could say even as much as that for The Last Tycoon, but alas, Scott Fitzgerald's brilliant, though unfinished story simply doesn't work at all on the screen. The central character is Monroe Starr, the head of production and resident wunderkind for a major Hollywood studio in the mid-1930s. Starr, as conceived by Fitzgerald and as played by Robert De Niro, is clearly modelled on Irving Thalberg, the MGM wunderkind of the same period.
Hello, Monroe.
Monroe. Gentlemen.
Here now is Starr at a studio board luncheon.
Everything all right?
Fine.
I was just saying, they'll never get the writers unionized. You know why? Because they hate each other's guts. They'd sell each other out for a nickel.
This man from New York seems pretty set on doing it, the one who's coming out to see me. What's his name?
Bremer.
Bremer.
Communist, yeah.
You mean a real communist?
Yeah, sure, a real one.
I mean, some of these guys are just jokers that call themselves communists. And mostly they are fairies, too.
There are other aspects, of course.
Well, I'll find out next week.
Better find out. The last thing we need is a writer's strike. We've got 16 pictures going into production.
I'll handle him.
Monroe can handle him.
Monroe can handle anybody.
Anyway, mostly they are fairies.
There are other aspects, of course.
Monroe, tell me, what do you think of the idea to make Manon with a happy ending, huh?
It's been making money without a happy ending for a century and a half.
What about the South American picture?
We're going ahead with that.
The same budget? It's out of proportion.
At that budget, we have no chance.
What do you think, Mr. Marcus?
Monroe is our production genius. I count upon him and lean heavily upon him. The balance sheet last year showed a $27 million profit. It's all due to him.
You know who first told him you were a genius? Guess.
You.
Well, the trouble is that, as directed by Elia Kazan and written by Harold Pinter, The Last Tycoon doesn't deal enough with the machinations of tycoonery. It concentrates far more on the rather soppy love story in which Starr pursues his dream girl, Kathleen, who's the image of his much-loved but unfortunately dead wife. And since Kathleen's played by Ingrid Bolting, who, to say the least, is right out of her depth without even a lifebelt to keep her afloat, the whole centre of the picture falls apart. Pinter's script is very faithful to the letter of the novel, but somehow misses its spirit, and the melodramatic ending when Starr becomes the victim of power politics, as practised by Robert Mitchum, the old-style studio boss, is pretty unconvincing, though Jack Nicholson livens things up in a brief appearance as a trade union negotiator. But apart from that, the only real bonus is Robert De Niro, who looks as if he was born to play Monroe Starr, and does it so well that he might have won an Oscar for it in a better film than this. Let's see him now as he shows the pretty but miscast Ingrid Bolting round the site of his beach house.
Will you live here alone?
Yes.
Alone with your movie projector?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you live now?
I live in my old house.
What's this?
Oh, the swimming pool. Or it will be a swimming pool.
Well, you need a constant supply of Nereids to plunge and gamble.
Nereids? What's that?
Sea nymphs.
Oh, no. I'll just come out here to read scripts. No distractions.
I lived with a man for a long time. Too long. I wanted to leave, but he couldn't let me go. So finally, I ran away. I must go now. I have an appointment I didn't tell you.
That's not true, but it's all right.
Let's now move on to Barbra Streisand and A Star is Born, in which she appears to do pretty well everything except sweep the set at the end of the day. She's the star and the executive producer, and she provides all her clothes from her own closet, as the credits solemnly inform us, and she has much to do with something known as the musical concept. She even supervised the editing and installed her hairdresser, John Peters, an intimate friend, I understand, as producer, which is pretty nice promotion for a hairdresser. A Star is Born has been made twice before, in 1937 with Janet Gaynor and Frederick March, and in 1954 with Judy Garland and James Mason. In those versions, the story was about a fading and alcoholic movie star who befriended a young actress and promoted her into being a star herself, while his own career faded into oblivion. In the latest remake, the setting is the world of rock music, with Grammy Awards instead of Oscars, and Chris Christopherson as the fading and alcoholic superstar who promotes the young, well, fairly young, Streisand into a bigger star than he is. Ian Johnston talked to Barbra Streisand at her home off Sunset Boulevard and asked how her role as Esther Hoffman differed from the women in the earlier versions.
What interested me was the passivity of the women in the other two pictures. You know, the husband would drink and they never really confronted the issues. Janet Gaynor would, after the Grammys, would take his shoes off with a bottle, you know, at his feet while he was lying there drunk. You know, where Esther Hoffman takes him into the bathroom and says, "What are you going to do for an encore? Set yourself on fire?" You know? It's just at different times.
Yeah.
The woman's role is changing, you know. In other words, I wanted to propose to him, and I was consciously wearing a man's suit.
I want to marry you.
You got your basic meeting with your basic mayor. You got the basic keys to the city, only you don't know what city you're in.
I want to marry you.
No, you don't. I drink too much. I throw my money away. I owe the government 180 grand.
Don't you want to?
That's not the point.
So do I, so we should do it together. Look, I never thought I'd get married again. You'd be lucky to have me.
It's not my luck I'm worried about. Hey, shut up. We're talking here.
I want you.
What do you know what you want? You've been on 2 planes.
I really do want you, Johnny.
Don't bullshit me, Esther. I start believing it.
It's not that I don't believe in radical feminism. I just believe in women assuming their own power, or women taking hold of their own strength. Women, you know, in just making this movie, I found the women to be even more emotionally stable than the men.
I suppose the man in the film was in a bad way when we first meet him, really, isn't he? I mean, his success has really rather overpowered him.
Yeah, well, that was another thing I was trying to say, which was that one has to have oneself, you know, one's inner life. That's what they call, you know, being together, I suppose, you know, slang. And when you're together, I mean, when you have a sense of yourself, then you're not just reliant on the audience's approval of you, the crowds. So I think what we were trying to show was that he was a sort of a performer who was dependent on the crowds. You know, when the crowd started to boo him or lose interest in him, he had nothing left. He didn't have himself.
We're coming closer, lady, don't you leave me now. Gonna make it. Don't look down.
Come on out and see how it feels in the lights.
No, no. There aren't any lights.
You want lights? Hey, give her lights.
Come on, the audience is going to walk out. Anyway, the sun's out.
Strike the sun and give her a pink spike.
You are crazy. You better go back there because I'm going to get mad at you.
Hey, where are you going?
Gordon, Miss Hoffman, Bob, is that okay?
Oh, man, you're beautiful.
You're great.
I love what you do. Woo.
Can't say much for your kissing, but I love your bike.
It's yours, man. I mean it. It's yours.
Kid.
Hey, come on, Johnny.
Your
Get
ass
behind the stage. Come on.
Get on!
you decide whether to use the close-up of you or the close-up of Chris or the long shot? I mean, what were the reasons for your decisions in editing? That's what I'm asking.
Well, I think it's totally instinctive, you know? It's like sometimes when I'm actually doing the scene, I'm staging it in my head. Well, now I think it would be interesting to see these two little figures, you know, the vast horizon of mountains. And then at a certain kind of moment, I would like to come real tight, see his eyes. But it's just in my head. So then when you're editing, you try it, you know. If it comes out like you think it should come out, you keep it. And sometimes you're totally surprised. What you thought was right is totally wrong. So you try it a whole other way, reverse it, make a mistake, you know, do something else.
Barbara Streisand looking incredibly like Harpo Marx. So much for a hairdresser. However, we'll see about her totally instinctive editing judgment when I review A Star is Born in our next programme, which, by the way, will be on Tuesday, March the 22nd. Right now, though, let me draw your attention to the fact that Mean Streets is being reissued next week. It was first shown here a few years ago when it drew much critical acclaim and earned about tuppence halfpenny at the box office because it was wrongly considered to be an art film, which to many people in the industry is a dirty phrase and can only be used if you wash your mouth out afterwards. In fact, it's a brilliantly observed portrait of a group of young hoods in New York's Little Italy. These are sort of fourth division mafiosi, the kind of people who'd sit below the salt at the Godfather's dinner table. It was directed by Martin Scorsese, who's now better known for films like Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore and Taxi Driver, and it helped to introduce Robert De Niro to an admittedly limited British audience. The centre of the film is the relationship between Johnny, played by De Niro, and his protector Charlie, played by Harvey Keitel, who's torn between religious fervour and his destiny, which is to be a small-time godfather himself.
What do you come out going shopping when you owe somebody money, Johnny? That ain't right. What are you talking? How much you got there? Charlie, I'm gonna pay him next week. I'm gonna pay you. You're going. You don't do nothing. How much you got there? I got I got enough $40. What are you doing? I got about $40, that's all. What? What are you doing? I'm lying. I'm holding on to this until next week till you make the next payment. What are you talking about? What, is it a little more than 40? Yeah, it's a mistake.
Yeah, it's a mistake.
Hey, listen, I swear to my mother, you come with me next Tuesday. I signed the paycheck over to you, Charlie. I swear to my mother. Swear to Christ, okay? Come on, you come, it's $110, you give it to Mike. Come on. Give me some money. We got those two beautiful girls out there. We're gonna get laid, Mom. I met those chicks in that Cafe Bizarre, model. They were fucking around with these two other guys. I know we're gonna get laid. That one wine trump is very nice. Very nice. I want to bang her like crazy.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's enough for you.
Come on, give me another 5. Come on.
Which one do you want?
Come on, you're leaving me with none. We gotta go eat Chinks.
That's it. Now, you better make do for this for the week.
All right.
Which one do you want?
Which one do you want? I want the wine trump one. She's nice. I like that one.
The one? She the one on the left?
Nah, she's the one. Nah. What, your left or my left?
We both stand the same way.
Well, I don't know. It don't matter. Which one? Hey, girls. A little business talk over. Everything's okay now. Excuse me for a minute. Hey, Tony, you think maybe you could put this on the tab because something happened before, you know, and you'll be doing me a favor, you know? Huh?
Big tab or little tab?
Well, don't you think it's better that you should put it on the small tab so that it balances out with the big tab?
Mean Streets opens next Thursday in London and goes out on release at selected cinemas later. I like Taxi Driver a great deal, but on a second viewing, I think I like Mean Streets even more. Anyway, the subject of hoods and gangsters brings me quite neatly to The Squeeze, which is a British film dealing with that sort of lowlife. It was directed by Michael Apted and stars, among others, the American actor Stacey Keach, very cleverly disguised as an Englishman. I'll let him tell you what The Squeeze is all about.
Well, I guess you could best describe it as a thriller, a suspense film. Some people may see it as a social documentary, but I see it as a very hard-hitting, very edge-of-the-seat kind of suspense movie where a kidnapping plot is involved. I play an ex-detective inspector on the London police force who's been an alcoholic for about 4 years, living on the dole, sort of down and out, and I'm approached by Edward Fox, who has since remarried my first wife, and he's a very wealthy man, and his wife, Carol White, is kidnapped by David Hemmings and Stephen Boyd, and she's held for ransom. So he comes to me to help him out, and basically that launches the plot of the story.
Coming. Now, where are they? What have you done with him, you drunken bastard? Jill! Wait a minute! Now, where are they? Who?
Jill! Christine! I don't know what you're talking about. You know damn well what I'm talking about. Now look, neighbor, where are they?
Listen, friend, I don't know what...
What's going on, Dad?
Nothing, Jack. Off to bed.
Is my mum with you as well, Mr. Foreman?
No, Jack, she isn't.
Off to bed. Look, what is this all about?
Look, when did you last see her?
Jill?
Yeah, when did she last come and see the boys?
About a fortnight ago. Why do you ask?
And she wasn't here yesterday?
No, she didn't turn up. Why?
Oh, Christ.
Well, come on.
She disappeared.
What?
Jill and Christine, they've disappeared.
Yes, well, I suppose that what Stacey Keach says about the plot is about right, though he might also have mentioned that it's a pretty violent film and rather sordid, too. Mr. Keach plays the kind of dedicated alcoholic whose idea of a good night out is a session with the other rummies on a demolition site, and the plot also includes a somewhat unpleasant relish of personal humiliation. At various times, both Mr. Keach and Carol White are stripped naked, in which state neither of them are at their best. Well, which of us is? So the only startling revelation of the film, therefore, is the performance of Stephen Boyd as the chief villain. Indeed, it was some time before I could be convinced that the fellow up there acting away like a good 'un really was Stephen Boyd. So accustomed have I become over the years to his usual amazing impersonation of a mobile tent pole. In The Squeeze, he really is astonishingly good and outacts everyone else, including Stacey Keach, David Hemmings, and even Freddie Starr, who makes an excellent debut as a petty crook turned minicab driver. In this scene, Keach has broken into Boyd's house looking for clues to the kidnapping. Stacey Keach, who was once described as the best classical actor since Barrymore. John, I imagine, rather than Ethel. Anyway, the next time we see him, I hope it's in a better film than The Squeeze. Actually, if you want to see a better film than The Squeeze, a much better film, as a matter of fact, let me recommend Rafferty and the Gold Dust Twins. It has its roots in all those road movies of the late 1960s, and also in Paper Moon, because it's about the relationship between a 15-year-old orphan, a lovable though acnid creature played by Mackenzie Phillips, and a middle-aged loser played by Alan Arkin, than whom nobody plays middle-aged losers better. Sally Kellerman is the third loser in this odd trio. It's not a picture that goes anywhere much, except in the physical sense, because there's a lot of motoring involved. But the people are fondly observed by director Dick Richards, who made the recent version of Farewell My Lovely, and the background of working-class provincial America is sharply depicted. The relationship between the three begins when the two girls are hitchhiking and Arkin picks them up. We'll show a little of that in just a moment. Meanwhile, a reminder that Melvyn Bragg will be here next Sunday, and I'll be back on Tuesday, March the 22nd. I think I'll say that again. Tuesday, March the 22nd. Don't forget, will you? I'd feel terribly lonely if you did. Anyway, till then, here are Rafferty and the Gold Dust Twins. Good night.
Now where?
New Orleans.
What?
New Orleans. Check his gas.
You're not serious.
Sure am. He's got plenty of gas.
Come on, this is some kind of joke.
Let's see, we take 15 to Baker, gas up, and then continue on to Vegas. Then we can go over to Flagstaff and then drop down to Phoenix. Then we'll take 50 from Phoenix and pick up 40 and shoot down to San Antonio. You got that?
You're not taking me anywhere. I'm pulling off. Don't shoot!
You best start sobering up, Gunny. Try that again and I'll blow the top of your head off. Look at him, big old ex-Marine. Hey, don't look so upset. We're gonna treat you okay. Just let him drive. Just trying to relax him. I said cut it out. Hey, let's get some ice cream. Hey, that's a good idea. Pull over. What you gonna have, Gunny?
What'll it be?
3 vanillas.
I'm being kidnapped by these two girls.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
evening. What, you may well be asking, ever happened to that old-fashioned commodity family entertainment? Well, don't despair, because there's some of that on the way too. Later on, I'll be previewing Star Wars, the biggest money spinner in the history of the cinema, and we'll have a location report from Spain, where Marty Feldman made his debut as a director with the last remake of Beau Geste, which, if I know Hollywood, almost certainly won't be the last remake of Beau Geste, but which is at least calculated to deal the whole genre of the Foreign Legion movie a friendly knee in the groin from which it won't lightly recover. And on a more sober note, we'll be taking a look at the progress so far of this year's London Film Festival, and we'll have a preview of Rainer Werner Fassbinder's Chinese Roulette. But we'll begin, for no better reason than that it's the only new film to open in London this week, with The Amsterdam Kill, in which we find Robert Mitchum in the hackneyed role of a disgraced former narcotics agent who emerges from dishonourable retirement to track down the Mr. Big, who's trying to take over the international heroin racket. To this end, he trudges round Hong Kong, London and Amsterdam, narrowly avoiding sudden death at the hands of the mobsters.
A lot of this is in Chinese. You know what this book is worth?
Yeah, our lives.
Our salvation, Jim. Sweet Juliana.
You mean there's a listing?
There's 3 of them here under the Juliana heading. The Flower Market, Ellesmere, the Amstel Pharmaceutical Laboratories. You can bet your ass they're buying from Hong Kong. Juliana Farms, Utrecht. I like the sound of this.
The Amsterdam Kill is a kind of chop suey Eastern, since it appears to be a Hong Kong co-production, which is probably why even Amsterdam seems to be exceedingly overpopulated with Chinese heavies. Nobody, least of all Mr. Mitchum, registers the least surprise at finding them in such large numbers murdering people in the heart of Holland. But then nothing in the film evokes much response from Mr. Mitchum. Indeed, he ambles through the plot with such little change of expression that even the Chinese must have admired his inscrutability. As a thriller, The Amsterdam Kill failed signally to thrill, and I can only imagine Mr. Mitchum accepted the part because he rather fancied a few weeks in Amsterdam and Hong Kong. I've no idea why the likes of Bradford Dillman and Leslie Nielsen also agreed to take part. Perhaps neither of them had been to Hong Kong before either. However, here's Mr. Mitchum about to start tracking down the villains in Hong Kong and being introduced by Mr. Dillman to the head of the local narcotics squad.
Paul, I think that you know...
Met. And how is this to be set up?
My source will pass the information on to me one bust at a time. I'll pass it along to you and we'll follow up on it together.
I won't permit you to get into any action.
What's the matter? You afraid I'm going to mainline the inventory?
This is my decision.
Look, try to find a mark. Clean as a whistle, gentlemen. Poor, but honest.
What else do you remove, Mr. Quinlan, to show what a bad cop looks like?
What about your goddamn head?
Look, I don't care what you two think of each other, just as long as the job gets done. Quinlan goes, Paul. He's my responsibility. As for you, Larry, no more of the prima donna crap.
Look, you're a cop who went sour. Fun doesn't give a damn about the circumstances. What do you expect him to do? Throw his arms around you? Offer up his firstborn male child?
You have a daughter?
I assume that you called your man in Holland.
Payphone on the way over here.
Right here.
You ever regret turning him in?
I hate a cop that goes bad. Especially a real good cop.
Well, let's move on to a film that will be opening at Christmas, the last remake of Beau Geste, directed by our very own Hollywood tax exile, Marty Feldman. It is, of course, intended as a send-up of the P.C. Wren story and stars, along with Mr. Feldman, the likes of Anne Margaret, Michael York and Peter Ustinov as the bullying sergeant. The sergeant, incidentally, who has a wooden leg and owns a teddy bear with a wooden leg and rides a horse with a wooden leg. I hate to think what P.C. Wren would have made of all that. Rather sensibly, Marty wanted to make the film quickly and cheaply on the Universal Studios back lot, but Hollywood, thinking big, which is a very bad habit it has, gave him a large budget and no fewer than 3 producers and sent him off to Spain on the grounds, presumably, that as Spain is where all the English people go for their holidays, it must be a warm and sunny place. So Mr. Feldman and his crew turned up to shoot desert scenes in Madrid in mid-November and discovered, unsurprisingly, that it was not only pelting with rain, but cold enough to freeze the hump off a camel's back, besides being quite noticeably short of desert. And it was here, under the shelter of a tarpaulin, that I spoke to Marty, the director, the co-writer, and the co-star.
This is a film about heroes and heroines, and possibly slightly romantic. Still mainly emphasis on comedy, but I wanted a good-looking hero and a beautiful heroine, and I wanted the hero to get the heroine. I wanted things to happen in movies that you wish would happen in life.
You see it? Okay. This Beaugeste is the all-time hero, and I witnessed this rather agonizing hairstyle.
They're very pretty, the curls. Yes, I like them, yeah.
And this hero doesn't even sweat. He is immaculate at all times. He's the all-time hero's hero.
Michael combines grace with that charm. Also, he's very able to play on the edge of reality, and there has to be a certain amount of reality in the wildest comedy, you know.
This character that I portray, her name is Lady Flavia Geste. Every time you see her, she's in a different outfit. She goes to bed with almost everyone in the film. And now she's married to her 8th husband, who is Trevor Howard, who is the father of Michael York and Marty Feldman, who play identical twins. So that makes me their stepmother, which is unusual.
Action!
I've never done an out-and-out comedy. And this is so crazy. It's madness. It's just madness.
Any writer who writes play, film, anything at all, has a picture of who is going to, not the person who's going to play it, but the way the person looks. Peter is God knows, is a marvellous heavy, which is what he's playing for us. You know.
He's a vicious, horrible comic man who makes he makes life impossible for everybody, and with a line of melodramatic dialogue. At the same time, his relationship with his corporal is somewhat suspect. What is difficult and challenging, and I hope that it's understood, is that sergeants of this kind are very bad actors, and they enjoy their bad acting. In a Victorian melodrama, they would be hissed. Unfortunately, soldiers are not allowed to hiss them, but they very often shoot them in the back, which really comes to the same thing. Boom, he misses. Zoom, misses 2. 3, I've got him. Oh, boot on the 3rd. 4th, I get stuck.
Right. I'm shaking big sheet. 6. Stays in. This one gets stuck. Kill. This one gets stuck. Stays in. Doesn't go back. Oh!
We're all on the same kind of comic wavelength, although our techniques are all very different. I'm really more of an actor who's terribly frightened of doing too much, although you may not think so. But then I've got the kind of appearance which does too much before I move. I learned that from Lawton, who was always accused of doing too much, but he's just sitting still. He was already doing too much.
This really is a slapstick farce, if you like, or slapstick is the wrong word. But it is basically a farce now that we're playing on that level of reality. But it's also played on the edge of reality. It's not played, farce is played absolutely for real. We're playing on the edge of it. We're playing pastiche.
As an English gentleman, you owe me an explanation. There is the blue water. We have searched every crevice on your person, every nook. We didn't even stop at crannies.
I think if you are making a story like this, you have to do it in contemporary terms. And I think Marty's humor is extremely contemporary, and he knows exactly what he wants, and yet he's aware he lets things happen. Things, happen unexpectedly, and he has the kind of imagination for, to seize upon these moments, to embellish them, and, let something radical and surprising happen.
There is a scene that Michael York and I do where we're going to go, it's much danger, we're going to go back to the scene of the battle and everything. And right in the midst of it, I'm so worried about him getting hurt and everything, and I say, is my hair all right? And then we do something else, and I'm running, and he says, is mine?
They're all helping me to direct. I mean, I'm not, never would be a auteur de cinema, that sort of thing. It's not my game at all. It's a collaboration.
But even so, the buck stops with you eventually, doesn't it?
Oh, yes. Many bucks stop with me. I hope millions of them, in fact,
How sophisticated.
You must forgive our crude desert ways, ma petite crêpe Suzette. I know this is not the type of soirée to which you are accustomed. But here in the desert, one must do what one can, huh? We shall not stay for long.
Ah, Sergeant, how delightful to see you again.
Welcome to Fort Zindenhof, gnädige Frau. Not yet tonight, it will be my hands.
And now, if you will do me the honor of partnering me.
Certainly I will.
Not you, ma petite marine glacée. Protocol demands I dance my first waltz with Sergeant Martin.
Cut, save it.
Silly idea making Marty Feldman and Michael York identical twin brothers. Anyone can see that Marty's much prettier than Mr. York. Anyway, as I said, that film is for Christmas time. Meanwhile, the 21st London Film Festival has been on for a week now and has proved so popular that the organisers have had to introduce morning screenings at the National Film Theatre, which is good news because it means there are still seats available even for the most prestige-laden screenings. And in that category tomorrow, there's Chinese Roulette, directed by Rainer Werner Fassbinder, whose work was first introduced to British audiences at an earlier London festival. Chinese Roulette is a melodrama set in a country castle, the weekend retreat of a well-to-do middle-class German couple. Without each other's prior knowledge, the husband, played by Alexander Allison, and his wife, played by Margit Carstensen, bring their respective lovers, Anna Karina and Uli Lommel, to the castle for the weekend. The resulting collision opens up a real can of worms as the married couple begin to reveal and to discover the truth about their relationship with each other and with their crippled daughter Angela, played by Andrea Schober. The climax of all this is an after-dinner game called Chinese Roulette, which is organised by Angela and culminates in each of the characters guessing what the others might have been doing during the Nazi years. We join the game now as the session warms up and the answers become increasingly sinister.